Okay, we're now going to take a look at panels, or palettes as some people may refer to them. And those are these guys who are actually found on the right hand side of the application window. Uh, they can be toggle open, as you see here, or closed. Okay, there's one or two missing here. But what I want to illustrate, aside from the fact that they can be toggled on or off individually, they can also be dragged away from the dock, okay, which is very, very useful, very handy, particularly when you're using what are known as the coloring tabs, okay. And this, the formulas, to some of the formulas can have quite a lot of parameters, but when you're looking at the actual parameters and colorings, these can get quite long. Here we're looking at the standard smooth Mandelbrot coloring, which is found in the library in the standard UCL folder, which is here, smooth Mandelbrot. Okay, some of the others, okay, are quite long and have multiple options, and they also include scroll bars, so it's very handy to be able to pull these guys off, maximize your screen space, and you can drag up and down independent of the others. I actually work, as you will see during this tutorial, with several of them dragged off. Much handier than having to go into a stacked array. Okay, for the moment, okay, we're not interested in any of these three that I have here. Okay, what we're going to look at is something we've already briefly touched on when we were looking at the menus introduction and the explanation of some of the actual menu items, and that is the gradient palette or gradient panel. Okay, so to open that, if you recall, the shortcut was Shift F4. Okay, and there she is. Immediately we're met with okay, these three windows, these three fields here. The top one, okay, if you look at the top color, is red, the second is green, and the third blue. So these are your RGB colors. Okay, Ultrafractal works with an RGB color model and not with a CMYK model, naturally, because it's for pixel rendering on the screen. And the output is generally photographic as opposed to CMYK color models, but that's another conversation for another day. This is very useful, as I said, and you're going to see now why, because we're going to change this standard gradient into a psychedelic or spectral gradient. For those of you who are familiar with my work, quite a lot of it is psychedelic, regardless of whether we're painting or doing fractals or photo manips or whatever I'm doing. I tend to work in nice bright colors. I find the old grey, kind of puts me in a bad mood at the best of times. Okay, so let me just point out that this is not all we're going to be working with here. We have immediately under these three fields, we've got another. If you look here on the left, you've got hue, saturation, and luminance. Okay, and you've got a toggle arrow here. So let's toggle this open by just clicking on the arrow. Okay, we've got the hue field, the saturation, and luminance. Okay, opacity we will be looking at, but to keep things simple or simple-ish for the moment, we're going to leave it alone for just now. Okay. As I said, we're going to make this into a psychedelic gradient, but first of all, I want to explain on these curves. Okay, we have points. Okay, I refer to these as nodes. They could be anchors, whatever you like. I refer to them as nodes. Okay, and to change an individual color, we click on one and we change its value by dragging up and down. Okay, so up, red, down. Okay, we're dragging it all the way down, so it's going to be black in this case. Just have a look. If you want to move the gradient globally. Okay, you can, sorry, I meant to mention, you can move this color. Okay, we're not seeing it here, depending on what gradient you're using and what coloring you're using, and what options, what transfer function you're using for that coloring. Which node you actually move within the gradient window will be reflected in that. So, okay, here I'm moving the white. This white band is here in this particular gradient. Okay, literally by practice, trial and error, you'll actually figure out a little bit better what I'm trying to explain to you here. The black here, okay, is not seen. Therefore, it has no bearing on what we're seeing updating in the actual fractal window. That's because we're using a linear transfer function. If we change this to something different like cube root, okay, this may or may not have a, I'll leave this for you to experiment, but this node will come into play with a different transfer function. Okay, but for the moment, I want to keep things simple, keep everything on linear. Okay, we're going to ultimately go for a psychedelic gradient, but first we're going to have a look at the luminance values. Okay, this black we've just been playing with, is it black? Is there such a thing as a black? In fact, no, there is not such a thing as a black. What we actually have here is a green gray, a dark green gray. And the luminance basically value, because the luminance is way down, there's no luminosity whatsoever, its reading is black. If we pick that up a bit, we'll see that green. Okay, the reason I picked it up as a green black is because it was actually showing up here. Okay, ultimately we're going to turn this into red, but for the moment, as I said, since I'm trying to explain luminosity to you, we're going to go back to black. Okay, so what happens if we go the opposite way with the next node? Okay, we click on the node, pull the luminosity up, we've got white. Next node, luminosity, pull it down, black. Next one up. Okay, this last one down. Okay, we have got a monotone, black and white gradient, and look what's happening when I'm actually sliding along here. I'm moving the entire gradient on the slider. If I move the individual point, I'm just moving that particular portion of the gradient. Okay, this is global, this is specific. Okay, let's go right. Okay, we want to pick up the luminance again to a gray. Let's go for a mid-gray. Okay, we're still in monochrome at the moment. Basically, a computer works in two colors. We should call them colors, black and white. It works in a binary model, ones and zeros, which basically translates to black and white. Okay, this is where these color gradients come in. Okay, as you see, we've got our black and white, and by actually modifying those ones and zeros slightly, this is where we get our color from. We'll have a look at, we've picked the saturation, we've got a nice mid-gray. Okay, what I want to do is I want to anchor this over to the right hand side, because this node is actually sitting on top of a bar. It could be anywhere here or as close to a bar as possible. What I can do is, just for convenience sake, just to save slippage or changing values here, just put it across all the way. Okay, now to get that red we were talking about, we go up to the red channel. Okay, by going up we're adding red, by going down we're subtracting. Okay, we're going towards cyan, so we're going up. Okay, with the green channel this needs to come down, and with the blue naturally needs to come down a bit as well. So we've got a nice rich mid-red. Okay, next color we're looking at here is, we want to get orange. Okay, we want to go spectral: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, not violent. Okay, so this color here will need to be yellow. Okay, the mid color is going to be orange. This needs to be yellow. So we bring this down to a mid value. Okay, it's orange. Okay, it's a nice orange. Let's pick it up just a little bit. What we could do, okay, what I'm doing here is I'm fast tracking. Okay, we'll look at this in a second. Okay, I want to actually bring the brightness of this up a little bit. Okay, it's too orangey for me, so bring up the luminance a bit. We've got a nice yellow here. Okay, pick up the yellow a little bit here in the individual. Okay, next color we want is blue. Okay, what I did there briefly. Okay, let's click on this node, this black here that we want to change to blue. What I did, if you note, have a look at the swatch down here, which I have highlighted. Okay, when I actually change value, watch this update. Let me see, pick that up there. It's, you see this is changing. Okay, that's for a reason. Let's double click on the swatch. Lo and behold, what have we got here? We've got red, green, blue, hue, saturation, luminance. In other words, red, green, this field, blue, this field, etc. down below. Okay, what we want to do is pick up a mid-range luminance color. Okay, we're looking at gray. We've got no color. We are going for a blue in this case. Okay, let's just go with any color. Okay, just to give it some color. Okay, we'll pick up the saturation a bit. We go probably mid-range, thereabouts. So we'll go full saturation. We will. Okay, what this then does is opens up the actual hue values here. Okay, and we can just go and quickly pick off a nice blue that we're looking for. And there we go. It's kind of a cyan blue that we're looking for because we want a nice kind of warm green. So pick up the luminance there a little bit. Okay, and there we've got something pretty close to what I want. That yellow could again. Let's go back to the yellow. We'll do this. Just tweak it a little bit. We'll click on that yellow. Tweak that a little bit. And I want it to be a bit more yellow. Okay. So we've got red, yellow, blue. So we've got red, orange, yellow, green, blue. Okay, so we want this indigo, and this needs to be violet. Okay, so let's click on this white node. Okay, you might have to click twice as I'm doing here. It's not actually taking the first. You've got to click twice. Okay, what way will we do this? We'll bring down the luminance. Okay, we've got a nice blue there. We can add some red in. There, here we go. Pretty much have it. This, okay, is a black. Okay, which I want. But what we'll do is we'll try to even out the gradient a little bit. We'll just drag this onto the end. So here we have our psychedelic gradient. You can actually tweak it to your own likings. What you can do is you can click on nodes and you can pump in these individual values into you can actually follow this tutorial I'm doing and actually use the exact values from here by just typing them in and hitting return. Okay, chances are I'll probably include the gradients I use in as a separate folder in the final video. Okay, what we want to do is to save the gradient. Okay, so to do that you can either hit Control click if you're using an old one button mouse, or with the newer mouse it's just right click. Okay, it'll bring up a contextual menu with a whole host of options, and we will look at quite a few of these. Have a look at Insert Delete, which we have we haven't looked at. Actually, what we'll do is just right click to come out of that for a sec. If we wanted to add a node in here, okay, there's a number of ways we can do it. You can hit Insert on the keyboard, okay, and it'll bring up a plus. Okay, it'll bring up a plus with the cursor. If you move this along the actual curve any point, okay, and then just click on it, it adds the node. Okay, and again you can go in, modify it as you see fit. Okay, with it selected, okay, if you want to delete it, okay, you can hit delete on the keyboard. You can go into that menu. Again, I'm not going to use that. Or if you have a look here, you've got this this node plus this node minus or insert delete. Okay, I just use delete and away it goes. Okay, so a number of ways of inserting or deleting nodes. You know, the choice is yours. I like to work, you know, in this case probably with either the keyboard or with the right click method, probably more so than these guys. Okay, so we right click. Okay, for the moment we're just interested in, don't worry about these, we'll have a look at some of these later on. Save as, and it'll bring us into the library. If you remember, we mentioned the library in the actual intro. Okay, at the moment we have the standard UGR, which contains the default gradient, which we started with, has an emboss, grayscale, lighting, royal, fairly basic gradients. Okay, what we want to do is to create our own folder. So let's call this course grads. Okay, file name, okay, course grads, COURSE, I'm going to go underscore grads .ugr, and we will call this psychedelic. Oops, forgot the N, yeah? Oops. Okay, sorry about that. Something went mad with my keyboard. Let's try this again. Save as course gradient psychedelic. Okay, I want to change the name of that to psychedelic. Psychedelic. Okay. Open. That one I don't want, so I can just hit delete. It should go away. No. Okay, delete that one. Yes. So okay. Ultimately, what I want is to be left with this gradient we've just created in UGR, which is okay. Let's call it our gradient folder, our custom gradient folder. Okay, we can make that wider or narrower. Okay, and then okay, if we want to switch back to the default gradient again for just for now, okay, we hit on standard, we'll click default, we've got the default back. But notice that the actual colors have actually changed here. You know, the values that we tweaked has changed this a little bit, so we'd probably have to go back in and, well, you can go with the sliders, whatever, to get it back. As I said, you know, this is kind of, you know, experimentation, but what I wanted to illustrate here was basically how to use this panel to create a custom gradient, save it off independently. Okay, for the moment we might as well go back in and leave it on the psychedelic gradient. Okay, again, just take a look, it's in linear mode. The transfer function, the outside coloring, which is in use here. I forgot to mention this. On the inside, we're not using an inside coloring, none. So it's just black. It's just a black blank, if you like. Outside coloring we are using smooth Mandelbrot. Okay, this has properties. You know, that's with the transfer function on linear. That's how it looks. Okay, changes to square root. Okay, you can see it just changes. Picks up different points on the gradient, treats it in a slightly different way. We leave it on linear, and we'll call this part of the lesson done for the moment. Okay, now let's have a look at, as mentioned, we'll have a look at the opacity options. Let's have a look and see if we could just draw the outline of this Mandelbrot, this default Mandelbrot, okay, without anything else. I want to be able to see where we are here. Okay, we've got just the background layer. We'll get into layers in a later lesson. For the moment, I want to keep it purely on one layer. Okay, so let's try to eradicate first of all this blank. We saw the inner coloring here, so the inside of the fractal. So we go over to the coloring tab. Remember, this is the gradient, and the gradient contains colors. The coloring tab more contains shapes, textures, and things like that. At the moment, we've got it reading none, which is fine. Okay, if we click on this black swatch here, it'll open this window, and we'll just dial the opacity right down to zip. Okay. Now, okay, on the outside, you know, it's not a case of just clicking that one when everything else goes away. I said because this has got a smooth Mandelbrot coloring, it's got a linear transfer function, and it's actually got a gradient mapped to that transfer function. We have to edit the gradient. Okay, so we're going to have to toggle open opacity. Okay, and before we do that, we've got to right click, and you've got an option here, link color and opacity. You need to check this to be able to see a curve. Okay, and there we have the curve with all the nodes or control points on them. So let's knock the red out. So I want to just get this outline. So little by bit, the further we move this red along, see, the closer it gets to the black node next to it. Okay, we don't want the black either, so let's, or the green for that matter. So let's drag both of those down closer to the yellow. There we have it. We're left. Okay, let's just take the blue out of it. Let's try to make this nice sort of smart like outline. And there we have it. We're just left with the Mandelbrot shape. Loads of transparency. Again, by just moving those opacity values around, we can actually get these soft transitions. So as we get into layers, this will become a lot more apparent. Okay, but look at these the soft transitions, soft fall-offs. Okay, that's nice and blurry. Okay, the closer I actually drag this control point over the next color, it sharpens it up and it becomes tight. If I bring the opacity up on the one next to it, it's a nice tight sharp line. Okay, move that out, it becomes blurrier. Okay, so you can control opacity, mid-range opacity, just by moving this left and right. The softness or hardness, the softness or hardness controlled by left or right. The actual opacity up and down. So, you know, that's basically all there is to opacity. But just remember to check that link color and opacity if you turn it off. Okay, I think it's already linked, so you can't do anything with it. You can't reverse it. Once it's actually linked, you can't reverse it. So, just as a closing note on the subject of gradients, obviously, you know, we're going to be working with this and you're going to be seeing things I may not have covered in this sort of overview. But there are some colorings, be warned, that you will not see updates on. For example, with Command J, at the moment, if I, you know, as I've demonstrated before, if I go with the hue, for example, a global, change the hue values, everything changes. Okay. There are some colorings which that would have absolutely no effect on. And in fact, actually, even the global slider will have no effect on. You will have to individually select a point to modify its values within the actual gradient. These are, you know, some of the actual direct coloring formulae, for example, cannot be edited, you know, in the way I've been showing you, apart from the single point or single node mode. You'll see this as we work through one or two of the lessons. So that's why it's actually important to play around with all the different options, get to learn them, and feel comfortable, as I said, particularly with the gradient panel. As I said, we showed you how to basically create a gradient from scratch, to save it, to modify it, to change its opacity values, its hue values, etc. All it takes is a bit of practice and a bit of feel and understanding. You get used to it in no time. Okay, so we've just taken a look at how to create a a custom gradient pretty much from scratch using the gradient palette, gradient panel. Now let's have another look at gradients. There's a kind of a way you can basically create a random gradient just at the touch of a button. Okay, there's a couple of ways you can get to this. Again, if you're in the actual fractal window, if you right click on it, you've got a gradient in the sub menu, and you've got these choices here. You've got random, randomize, randomize bright, randomize misty, randomize custom, and this little beauty here, which for me is probably my favorite tool in the whole of ultrafractal, which we're going to get to in a separate lesson, is Control J, is just colors. We may even get to it in this lesson. Let's just have a right click off of this for a sec, because if you notice there again, the shortcuts for this, just using, as opposed to Shift F4, which brings up the gradient menu, if we go Command 4, okay, it brings up the randomize gradient menu. Okay, here we're looking at a minimum number of 4 and maximum number of 10 nodes. As I said, I've already referred to, I use the term nodes, and you'll see this reflected in the graph. If I bring up the gradient window now in a second, you've got hue, saturation, luminance, opacity. Okay, and you can plug in basically your minimum max values for each. Not really sure why hue goes up to 359 and not 255. That's curious. But let's double this. We'll go 8 and 16. Okay, just to give it a pretty full choice of colors. 8, 16, between 25 and we'll say 225. Okay, saturation between 25 and 200. Okay, so okay, radically changing the values here. Let's click on generate, and as you can see, it's just randomly generating gradients as it sees fit. Okay, let's click OK. Okay, as I said, you can go in. So we'll look at it for a sec. Control F4, options, space, randomly space evenly, okay, if you want an even gradient. Randomize colors and opacity. Okay, the randomize, okay, is okay. That'll put the control points I've mentioned, the nodes. We'll put them in, where random spots along the actual the graph, or the field, as I referred to it in the previous lesson. The hues, saturations, again, these are basically just the parameters that you're actually setting for it. The opacity, okay, we haven't looked at that yet, but after we've looked at it, again, you can put into how opaque or how transparent you want this randomness to be. Let's click OK, accept it. Okay, let's go. I want to go back to back to where we were. Let's have a look at command 3. Okay, this was, let me see, it was I never used these. I think it was Misty, gradient, yeah, randomize Misty. Okay, rather nice that as well. Command 2. Okay, that was randomize bright, I think. Randomize bright, yeah. And just control 1 is randomize. So yeah, okay, they can be dull or bright. Okay, so whatever program's showing up can be useful again as a starting point. Let's have a look at Shift F4. Okay, this is what we've got. If we go back to Control F4, we said 8, 16. Can you see the way the points are now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's chosen 10 points for that particular one. Okay, let's hit generate. Okay, more points here. Basically, it's just chucking in control points or nodes here, random values put as you've said. Okay, we'll open up the hue. I think that went up to 300 and something, didn't it? Okay, maybe it makes a difference. I don't know. I don't know why that value was so high and everything else is 255. Okay. So again, that's basically what the random does, creates randomness in here, and again you can go in and tweak those points. Here's another thing, if we right click here, we got smooth curves. Let's take this off. Okay, on some gradients you'll see these much sharper transformations or transitions. Okay, again it just depends what you're after here. More metallic gradients will tend to have the smoothness turned off. I find, you know, I use it on some things myself. Smooth curves. Okay, and we'll we'll leave this open. Okay, I'm just going to move it off over here for a sec. Yep. Still want to, yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier. It kind of sticks to the too easily. It sticks to the dock. I don't want it to dock. Why not? Let's have a quick look at Command J. Okay, this is what it does. As you saw previously, when we clicked in the swatch in the gradient window, it brought up your RGB values. This is an absolute beauty because it brings your RGB, HSL, you got your contrast and brightness as a separate tab here. Okay, you can change the entire gradient, okay, as a global or as a specific point. So let's go into HSL. Okay, at the moment we have selection only turned off. We've nothing selected. Before we actually do, we have actually a point selected down here, which I've left selected. Okay, let's click selection only and just modify the hue. Look at this. The hue is changing in the actual gradient window. Okay. Okay, it's not updating here, it's updating here. Okay, click OK, and if you actually move the slider along here, green is somewhere there, probably around, yeah, there it is, coming in there, the end of this curve here. Okay, let's go back into Command J and change the entire global color. In other words, all the points. Okay, I don't like it that greenish. I want to go something more towards red probably. Okay, I might have to play around with this a bit. Pick up the saturation a bit. Okay, now I'm going blue. Okay, the secret here may be in contrast. But all the while you can actually see that globally the values are changing. Lumens there. Actually, something nice happening there. I'm still not really getting the red I wanted. Okay, there we go. I've got the red outside here. Picking up the lumens. Okay. Now I've completely changed what we had. Let's click OK. Command Z. Okay, that's what we had. Command Y. And that's what we've changed it to. Just with the global switch. Totally changed the mood and tone of the graph of the gradient, just by moving one slider in one control window. Again, you know, by experimentation you can pick up the gamma. You have much finer control on either a global or a whole point. I use that Command J pretty much all the time these days. You know, once you've kind of got used to modifying, you know, creating your base gradient, that is a really powerful tool, and you're going to see it in action as we go through the course of this tutorial. Okay, just before we leave this area for now, I want to mention that some people use apophysis gradients quite a bit in ultrafractal. It's something I'd urge you to try and avoid, as you have simply no control over apophysis gradients, and I'll show you why. That is not to say don't use them at all, but try to get in the habit of creating your own gradients using a manageable amount of nodes, and no more than that. You've basically seen why. You've got some control over it. just to show you the difference, I'm going to import an Apophysis gradient, and it really is a nightmare in Ultrafractal. Okay, so to do this, okay, we can do this in a number of ways. I think you can go to File, Open, no, File New. Okay, not File. I think there is a way you can pull gradients in here. What I'm going to show you, I have basically a gradient here on the desktop, which I've exported from Apophysis. Okay. One thing you can do with this is you can copy it and paste it into your Documents folder, Ultrafractal gradient subfolder, and it'll create like its own Apophysis folder, like we've just created one for the coarse gradients. Okay. But for convenience sake, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open it from within the actual the gradient panel. Okay, so again, what I'm going to do here is control click or right click, open. Okay, at the moment you can see we're in library mode here. Okay, if you look in the top right here of the browser, okay, you've got library only and it's checked. If we uncheck that, lo and behold, it opens up the whole computer. What we want to do is go to the desktop, wherever it is here. I think here, Macintosh users, desktop. Okay, okay. I've had to search for it. Okay, via the browser. There it is on the desktop. Double click. There's the Apophysis gradient. Okay, we're going to double click to open it. Now what we can do this way, okay, as I said, we can actually do it the easy way by copying and pasting, as I've just mentioned, within the folder, or we can, for now, we can right click again, save as, and what we're going to do down here is call this Apophysis gradients, Apo gradients, or Apo gradients. Okay, and this should actually, in Ultrafractal, Documents, Ultrafractal, you can see the path here. If we go save, okay, we'll go back in here again, we'll go open, we'll go library only this time, if we can get it back. Okay, wrong one, library only. We're in, okay, we didn't get it, standard. Let me have a look at this again. Okay, I can see why that needs to go into coarse gradients, Apo gradients. Okay, let's drag and drop it into gradients here, which I can't. Edit, cut, gradients, paste. And there we have it. Okay, it's now within the gradients file. Let's go back in. And there we have it, Apo gradients. Okay, that's kind of, you know, it didn't work out as smoothly as I thought it might. So your best bet here, you know, is to, you can import it, work with it, you know, and just take more care than I did in browsing to the actual file or folder in which you're going to save it to. Or you can copy paste it as previously mentioned. Let's double click it to open it. Okay, click open. Okay, so now we're actually working with the imported gradient, which is now sitting in our library in that Apo file. Look at the state of this. Okay, there's bands everywhere. Even if we turn off repeat gradient, not much better. You know, be my guest. If you want to go ahead and edit like 140 more of these nodes at a time, it really is a nightmare, and it's very slow to update. But as I said, these do have their uses, so don't discard them altogether. It's a good job we have. I'll probably import one or two more during the course of this tutorial, and I'll show you basically how I use them, but they do have their uses, so don't discard them altogether. I'm going to leave it at that for this particular this particular section, this particular part of the tutorial, and I hope that you've been able to follow it up to now.